If you're looking for inspirational videos on how to make the best stained glass, tutorials, tips and tricks on some cool ideas, you've come to the right place. Hello and welcome to my studio. We got a great response from the last video that I made on the self-portrait for the British Society of Master Glass Painters, with lots of questions in the comments. So I'm just making a follow-up video so that you have a clear understanding about the techniques that I used in making that sample panel. But I also want to introduce you to some more techniques that I use when I'm making stained glass, especially when I'm making sample panels for perhaps larger projects. I do a lot of public art projects. I work for the church. I make a lot of ecclesiastical glass, but I also make artworks for public buildings, etc. And I'll make the projects here in my studio if I can, if I've got the time and the energy to make a project within a certain time scale. But if I don't have the time to make a project within a certain time scale, I will go to another studio. I'll use studios in Europe or studios in this country. So before I take a project to one of those larger studios, I will make a few maquettes, examples of just ways in which I want to see how the glass behaves. And I'm going to show you some of the techniques that I use in order to get a quick result. These can be translated into small scale projects. These can be translated into projects for you in ways that you might want to experiment with glass. So let's get into the details, first of all, of how the sample panel for the exhibition was actually constructed. So in creating the effect, I simply stacked pieces of coloured glass together, one next to the other. There's no glue involved, there's no fusing involved in this particular situation. It's simply sandwiching panes of glass between other panes of glass and closely stacking them together, allowing us to create a multifaceted effect like this. I then put a piece of opalescent glass between the top painted layer and the tiled layer, and the effect of that was to just soften and diffuse the coloured glass in relation to the painted glass. It's a nice effect. So again, when I'm making maquettes, I very often use screen printing as a technique, but rather than screen printing sample panels, I use this method. It's a really nice method, and for you, I think it's a great way to experiment and to create new pieces of glass, which are very, very easy to generate. So quite complex design here. You see lots of painted details with photographic images underneath. How are these photographic images created? Well, they're created with a computer and transparent film. We create a layer in between the glass layer of the top glass layer and the bottom glass layer, similar to the colored tiles, but in this instance we're using film. So let's take an example. Choose an image and bring it up onto your computer and desaturate it first of all. And in desaturating it, you also want to increase the contrast, so you're creating a high contrast image. Then print this image out onto the acetate, ideally using a laser printer rather than an inkjet printer in this instance. Laser printing works better for this type of thing and is more durable. I tend to print out a number of images and then layer them on top of each other to create a denser effect. You can try printing on the same piece of acetate, but it's harder to do. You then have the choice of layering this image with as many other layers of glass as you choose. So I'm playing around with using stain, and you can actually paint, on both sides of the glass, on numerous levels of glass, and trapping this image in there. You're introducing the image into the body of the glass. It looks really nice from both sides with the opalescent as well as the front-facing glass. So once you're happy with how you've applied the image to the glass, you can then seal it. I tend to use copper foil. It's really easy to work with, and this is your basis for then constructing a sample panel, a maquette if you like. I often make them into traditional stained glass windows, so I'm using a lead profile, but you can simply dry glaze them if you want as well. Here's an example that I've shown earlier, which is made into a traditional stained glass window with lead, and you can have painted effects on the front and on the back, and it's just a really nice way of experimenting, and it's very cost effective to create some ideas before you sort of launch into a larger project. So I think it's important to say that these techniques are simply ways of experimenting with how a finished product might look. These are not finished products in any way. Certainly the layering effect is something that I use in order to get a quick result. There is no substitute for hand painting glass. There is no substitute for good quality screen printing. And some people, the purists among us, will say that screen printing is not appropriate for artworks either in glass. I happen to believe that you should allow yourself to be as creative as possible and keep your mind open to as many options as you can, because in becoming familiar with more options, it gives you more opportunities to push the medium forward in your own way, in the way that you choose, in the way that's good for you. So there are more ways to work in glass than the traditional way, and this example here is simply one way in order to get a quick result. It's simply a method for experimenting with glass and experimenting with layers, and I think it's important to sort of be able to think in terms of not just a single two-dimensional membrane of glass that you look at, but you actually might be multifaceted. It might have quite a number of layers with lots of interweaving effects, some working receding to the background, some in the foreground. Those are lovely ideas to play with glass, and I'm encouraging you to be as creative as you can in your application of putting pigment onto glass and putting colors together and putting textures together. The only rule in the business of being creative is there are no rules, and I would encourage you to break the rules wherever possible in the pursuit of creating something new and in the pursuit of creating something interesting. So hopefully you found this video interesting today. I will gladly make more videos on a variety of topics if you are interested. I might well make some videos on traditional glass painting techniques. I do a lot of traditional glass painting here at the studio. I teach traditional glass painting techniques, and I will gladly make more videos for you on these topics if it's of interest. Let me know in the comments, and I will do my best to reply and make some helpful videos for you, because at the end of the day we are a community of creatives, and the more we share, the more we talk, the more we collaborate with one another on ideas, the greater the good for glass, the medium of glass, both traditional stained glass and more contemporary art glass. So with that said, all the details of my courses are in the description below. Please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.